The email sat in his drafts folder for 3 days. His resignation letter, the ultimate sacrifice for a love she couldn't believe was real. As David's finger hovered over the send button, he wondered if throwing away a decade-long career was worth it for someone who thought his feelings were just another corporate game. If you've ever risked everything for love, only to have your sincerity questioned, this story might just break your heart, and then put it back together again. If this resonates with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the complicated intersection of love, career, and sacrifice. David Chen never planned to fall in love with Victoria Reynolds. As the chief financial officer at Horizon Technologies, he was content with his corner office, his impressive salary, and his reputation as the company's most reliable executive. Victoria had taken over as CEO just 18 months ago, sweeping in with bold ideas and an even bolder personality that transformed their stagnating tech firm into an industry powerhouse. Their professional relationship had always been respectful but distant. Victoria was brilliant but guarded, a woman who had fought through a male-dominated industry by building walls so high that nobody knew the person behind the power suits and decisive boardroom commands. David admired her from afar, appreciating her strategic mind and unwavering determination. The first crack in their professional dynamic appeared during a late-night budget crisis. The company was finalizing a major acquisition, and the numbers weren't adding up. David found Victoria alone in the conference room at 2 a.m., surrounded by spreadsheets and empty coffee cups, her usually perfect posture now slumped with exhaustion. "You should go home," he said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "The deal won't fall apart if you get some sleep." Victoria looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but still sharp. "I don't have the luxury of sleep when 300 jobs are on the line, Chen." Instead of leaving, David sat down across from her. "Then let me help." They worked through the night, finding the discrepancies and restructuring the financial model. As dawn broke over the city skyline, Victoria smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her face from intimidating to breathtaking. "We make a good team," she said softly. That night changed something between them. Their professional interactions became tinged with something personal, inside jokes during serious meetings, knowing glances when board members made predictable arguments, late dinners disguised as work sessions. David found himself looking forward to budget reviews and quarterly planning meetings, occasions that had once been the bane of his existence. 6 months into their evolving relationship, David realized he was in love with her. The realization hit him during an ordinary moment. Victoria was challenging his financial projections for a new product line, her mind working faster than anyone else in the room. Her intelligence, her drive, even her stubbornness captivated him completely. But loving Victoria Reynolds came with complications that extended far beyond the typical workplace romance. She wasn't just his colleague, she was his boss, the public face of a company with thousands of employees and millions in shareholder value. The company's strict non-fraternization policy existed specifically to prevent exactly this situation, with termination as the standard consequence. For weeks, David said nothing, burying his feelings beneath professionalism and distance. He started declining the late-night strategy sessions, making excuses to avoid one-on-one meetings. Victoria noticed. Of course she did. Nothing escaped her attention. "Have I done something to offend you?" she asked bluntly one evening, cornering him in his office after everyone else had gone home. David looked at her, at the woman who had unknowingly captured his heart, and made a decision that would change everything. "No. But I need to tell you something, and it might make things uncomfortable between us." Victoria's expression shifted to guarded concern. "Go on." "I have feelings for you," he said simply. "Feelings that go beyond professional respect or friendship. I've tried to ignore them, but I can't. And I understand if you need to transfer me to another department or accept my resignation." The silence that followed felt eternal. Victoria's face remained unreadable, her years of negotiating high-stakes business deals serving her well in this unexpected moment. "That's not funny, David," she finally said, her voice cold. "I'm not joking. Then you're playing some angle I don't see yet. Her eyes narrowed. Is this about the board meeting next week? Are you trying to distract me from the budget cuts? David felt as though she'd slapped him. This isn't a corporate strategy, Victoria. These are my genuine feelings. Nobody develops genuine feelings for their CEO without an ulterior motive, she said, her voice hardening. I've been in this industry long enough to recognize manipulation when I see it. Not everything is a power play, David argued, frustration building. Sometimes people just fall in love. Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in it. Love? Now I know you're lying. We've never even had a conversation that wasn't about this company. That's not true, David countered. What about the night we talked about your grandfather's farm in Vermont? Or when you told me about turning down Harvard to care for your mother? Or when we argued for an hour about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie? Victoria's composure faltered slightly. Those conversations had happened during their late-night work sessions, moments of vulnerability she'd allowed herself only because she'd categorized David as safe, a trusted colleague, nothing more. Those were professional bonding moments, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. They were real, David insisted. Just like my feelings for you are real. Victoria straightened her jacket, rebuilding her walls in real time. I think you should take some time off, David. Clear your head. When you come back, we can pretend this conversation never happened. She left his office without another word, leaving David with the sinking realization that the woman he loved didn't believe in his sincerity, or worse, couldn't allow herself to believe it. The next few weeks were excruciating. Victoria avoided being alone with him, scheduling their necessary interactions in group settings or communicating through her executive assistant. The easy rapport they'd built crumbled into stiff professionalism that felt more painful than outright rejection. David tried to accept her decision, to revert to their previous professional relationship, but the distance between them only made his feelings grow stronger. He found himself noticing small details, how she always touched her left earring when thinking through a difficult problem, how she kept a small photo of her mother hidden behind her computer monitor, how she secretly fed the stray cat that lived in the parking garage. After a month of this painful dance, David made a decision. If Victoria couldn't believe his feelings were genuine, he would have to prove it with actions, not words. He drafted his resignation letter, laying out his accomplishments over his 10 years with the company and recommending his deputy for promotion to his position. The letter sat in his drafts folder for 3 days while he gathered the courage to send it. Leaving Horizon Technologies meant abandoning the career he'd built, the security he'd earned, and the professional reputation he'd cultivated. But staying meant living with the daily pain of loving someone who couldn't, or wouldn't, believe in that love. On the 3rd day, as his finger hovered over the send button, his office door opened. Victoria stood in the doorway, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. Your assistant said you wanted to see me, she said. David closed his laptop. I didn't ask to see you. Victoria frowned. She said it was urgent. Understanding dawned on David. His assistant Emma had always been perceptive, perhaps noticing the tension between them and taking matters into her own hands. He made a mental note to either fire her or give her a raise, depending on how the next few minutes unfolded. Since you're here, he said, there is something I need to tell you. Victoria crossed her arms defensively. I thought we agreed to move past our previous conversation. You decided that, David corrected. I never agreed. Victoria sighed, closing the door behind her. David, whatever you think you feel. I'm resigning, he interrupted. My letter is drafted and ready to send. That caught her attention. Victoria's professional mask slipped, revealing genuine shock. What? Why would you throw away 10 years at this company? Because I can't work with you anymore, David said honestly. Not like this. Not pretending that I don't love you. This is ridiculous, Victoria said, but her voice wavered. You're one of our most valuable executives. The company needs you. And what about what I need? David asked quietly. Victoria fell silent, studying him with the intense focus she usually reserved for complex business problems. You're serious about this, she finally said. You would actually leave Horizon? Yes. Because of feelings. Because I'm in love with you, David corrected. And because you don't believe me. Victoria moved further into the office, perching on the edge of his visitor chair. Do you understand what you're saying? No one sacrifices a career like yours over romantic feelings. I do, David said simply. Victoria shook her head slowly. In my experience, people don't make sacrifices without expecting something in return. The sadness in her voice struck David more deeply than her disbelief. What experiences had taught her that love always came with conditions? Not everyone wants something from you, Victoria, he said gently. Sometimes people just love you for who you are. And who am I? She challenged. The real me, not the CEO you report to. David didn't hesitate. You're the woman who keeps emergency chocolate in your desk drawer but pretends you never eat sweets. You're the person who memorized every employee's name in your first month because you believe leadership starts with recognition. You're someone who cries at commercials with dogs but can stare down hostile board members without blinking. You work too hard, sleep too little, and care more than you let anyone see. Victoria's carefully maintained composure cracked, her eyes widening at his words. You noticed all that? I notice everything about you, David admitted. I can't help it. Victoria stood abruptly, turning away from him to stare out his office window. The company has a non-fraternization policy. I know. If there was anything between us, one of us would have to leave. David nodded, though she couldn't see him. That's why I drafted my resignation. Victoria turned back to face him, her expression unreadable. You would give up your career here? For me? Yes. Why? The simple question contained worlds of vulnerability. David stood, moving closer but still maintaining a respectful distance. Because some things matter more than careers or companies, he said. Because I've never felt this way about anyone before. Because when I imagine my future, you're the only part that feels essential. Victoria's professional mask dissolved completely, revealing the woman beneath, uncertain, hopeful, and afraid. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I've spent my entire career keeping people at a distance. We could figure it out together, David suggested. But only if you believe me now. Victoria took a deep breath. I want to. It's just difficult to trust something that seems too good to be true. Then don't trust words, David said. Trust actions. Trust time. I'm not going anywhere, unless you want me to. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Don't send that resignation letter, she said softly. Victoria. Not yet, she clarified. Give me time to figure this out. To figure us out. It wasn't a declaration of love, but it was an opening, a crack in the walls she'd built around herself. David nodded, hope blooming in his chest for the first time in weeks. I can do that, he promised. Victoria's hand reached out, hesitantly touching his. The simple contact felt more significant than any business deal they'd ever closed together. I'm not good at this, she warned. At feelings. At vulnerability. I don't need you to be good at it, David said. I just need you to be willing to try. A small smile curved Victoria's lips. I am excellent at trying, she said. It's practically my specialty. David laughed, the tension between them finally breaking. I've noticed. Victoria's fingers intertwined with his, a small gesture that represented an enormous step for her. This won't be easy, she said. The board, the company policy, the power dynamics. I know, David interrupted gently. But I think we're worth the complications. Victoria studied their joined hands, then looked up to meet his eyes. I think, she said slowly, that I might be starting to believe you. It wasn't a perfect ending, it was barely even a beginning. There would be difficult conversations ahead, professional complications to navigate, and personal barriers to overcome. Victoria's trust had been damaged by years in a cutthroat industry where vulnerability was weaponized. David's career path had suddenly become uncertain. But as they stood together in his office, hands linked and futures intertwined, one thing became clear: some risks are worth taking, some jobs worth sacrificing, and some loves worth fighting for, even when they seem impossible. Sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't climbing mountains or changing the world, but simply opening your heart to someone who's afraid to believe in love. 6 months later, David did eventually send a resignation letter, not because he had to, but because he chose to. He started his own financial consulting firm, maintaining his professional integrity while building something new. Victoria remained CEO, continuing to lead Horizon Technologies with the same brilliance and determination, but now with a newfound ability to let someone see behind her walls. Their journey wasn't easy, but it was theirs, a love story built not on grand gestures or perfect circumstances, but on the courage to risk everything for something real, even when belief seemed impossible. Sometimes the most powerful words aren't, "I love you," but simply, "I believe you." And sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with love at first sight, but with trust that grows slowly, deliberately, and completely, one brave moment at a time.